Okay, I'm just giving it a second to pick up. Sometimes it takes a sec. There we go. It's Sarah Burke here, and this is the Women in Media podcast. And on the show today, I'm so excited to welcome the longest running female news anchor at Global News, Susan Hay. How are you?
It's so nice to meet you and to be on your show. Thanks for having me.
This is the most pro setup I've had on this podcast. Your video looks great. You got to watch this one on YouTube if you can. So, what's the day been like today? Like what's the current schedule look like? You've been doing this 35 years. Is it the same or is it different this week?
This week is it's crazier. This whole month of May and part of June is crazier than it has been. Right now, I'm working on putting together a half hour Making a Difference that will air May 20th at 5:30 p.m. on Global News Toronto. And it's all about my stories from this year, sort of the stories that resonated most with our viewers and probably me as well.
I have to tell you, I graduated from a broadcast journalism program, Fanshawe College in London. It was a joint degree diploma. And, you were one of those names that in class they were talking about all the OGs. It was Susan Hay, it was Cheryl Hickey, and seeing the career that you've made out of this, especially as someone who, had the dream of doing the same thing you're doing. Things have changed for me a little bit since, but, it's
Change is good.
absolutely change is good, but it's absolutely amazing in this day and age that, you've been in the same spot 35 years, right?
I know.
So you're in a big reflection, I would imagine, with this anniversary. And what kind of thoughts have been coming up this month as you're preparing, to celebrate with your colleagues and with the industry?
Good question, Sarah, because I am full of emotion. I swear I can't buy, a birthday card for a family member and I'm in tears. Um, but even driving to work, to and from, that's my downtime. Sometimes I'm booking a story, going into work
Yeah.
and coming home, but for the most part, I'll put my music on and then I just go into this deep thought because I know um, I work with such amazing people that they celebrated my 25th. My 30th was huge here. I
Yeah.
know they're not going to let 35 just walk on by. So I just don't know how I'm going to hold it together because I love this place and I love my colleagues. And I think for me, I remember driving up this driveway for an audition 35 years ago and I knew I was going to work here. I just
Well,
knew.
let's go back in time actually. Tell me about where you grew up and what made you want to get into this industry to begin with.
I didn't want to get into this industry. I just had this conversation with my colleague here, Eamon, and I'm from North Bay, Ontario. Come from an amazing, close knit family. My parents gave us such a foundation to flourish, to do whatever we wanted. And I was just saying, I finished high school. I was only 17. I didn't want to go to university and waste my parents' money because I didn't know what I wanted to do. So I went to college, which was great, Canadore College, loved that experience.
Yeah.
And for 2 years, I took business and all sorts of courses, which I completed. But at the end of it, I thought, I loved kids. I thought I would do something that was children's based. So I wanted to get into early childhood education. And I got a summer job. I'm fast forwarding here in Sudbury. They just opened a station, CTV, CBC, under one roof, and I was the executive assistant to the vice president of news and operations. And he said, "You're not just taking this for the summer, are you?" And I said, "No, of course I was." I never left, Sarah. I
Oh
had
my
so much
gosh.
opportunity, and I still didn't want to go on the air. The president of the company said, "We want to test her." And there's so much to the story, but I'm going to fast forward. Long story
Yeah.
short, here I am, and I think this was the right path for me because I use my platform to lend a voice to those that might not have one. And I do a lot of charities that are children based. So I've got the best of both worlds.
Yeah, I do want to talk about like some of your most rewarding moments in this career. I'm still not done with this period of your life where you were getting into the dream. I'm wondering about the moment where you first had to be on camera. Can
Oh,
you talk about that
well,
experience a little bit?
terrified. They said, "You're gonna do" first of all, they started, "We're gonna test you. You're gonna do community notes." Okay, how bad could that be? We
Yeah.
got through that. Then they said, "You're gonna fill in for Sandy Campbell. She does it's called The Today Show. It's a half hour. She was a friend of mine, saw it all the time. You're gonna host that show for a week while she's gone." I can't do that. Yes, we're gonna get guests that are chatty, and I remember that light went on and I was just like stone face. And they kept saying to me, "You need to smile. You've got such a beautiful smile." I go, "What am I smiling at? I'm looking at nothing. I'm looking at this lens." But when I would interact with somebody, my personality would come out. So
That makes
terrified
sense.
is the word that I would use going way back.
Totally fair. And then when it comes to, like,
Right.
connecting in community, when was that I feel like it's almost like an addictive feeling, that first moment where
Oh, yeah.
you realized how much of an impact you could use sharing the platform and sharing stories of others.
And I don't remember the first time. I just remember my parents were very giving and it just came naturally to me. So when I
Yeah.
was in Sudbury at my first job, somehow I was working with kids, um, children with disabilities, and I just decided one Saturday that I would come into the station and bring these kids in so that the parents could have a break.
Oh,
Who
nice.
knew? I didn't know about respite. I just felt because I was very young. Like I started this career probably 19ish. I just thought the parents needed a break. Go for a cup of coffee, go grocery shopping. We've got this. I brought some other, colleagues in from the station. We had the best time with these kids in the studio. And
Yeah.
and the parents felt safe that they could go out for an hour. And so I think that was my start. And
Yeah.
when I got into the community side of things, the charitable side of things, I found charities that resonated with me, not, could somebody find me a charity? And when I started to do this, it wasn't part of my job. A camera didn't follow me. I would do this on the weekend or after work or what have you. And it
Yeah.
just became fulfilling. So
Yeah.
making a difference was just, it evolved through that.
So being a woman in the media, the spotlight's on you, public profile. How do you remember at 19 sort of dealing with body image and confidence? Because I feel like that's a huge thing for all of
Huge.
us coming up in this industry.
I think it was okay when I was in Sudbury.
Yeah.
When I came to Toronto, I mean, I was at CBC before Global, and that was okay.
Hmm.
You deal with different personalities. I'm young. I'm working downtown Toronto from, Sudbury, Ontario, and you get used to all of that. When I came to Global and I started to really soar, um, you just heard a lot of comments, not body image, none of that, but it was, how did she get her job? She's not
Hmm.
intelligent. She reads that. Who gave her that job? Like there was a lot of that that I had to fight through
I bet. I
for
bet.
many years, men and women. You know, not all women have your back. You'd like to think
Yeah.
we're this community, but yeah, I went through a lot. And at a time when nobody was talking about any kind of movement or you can go to human resource and this will all be fixed or
Yeah.
that's nobody's ever going to talk to you like that again. I was just basically out
Yeah.
there. Yeah,
And
it
I
was hard.
find I find like I got through some of those tougher moments by community, right? Like the colleagues who end up becoming the friends that you didn't even know you would have and
Yes,
other women in the industry. Was there someone who stands out as like a mentor for you?
a female in the
Yeah.
industry.
Well, but men too.
When I came here, yes, Sharon Murphy. I'm gonna say she's been here longer than I by a couple of years, pretty much the
Yeah.
same age. She just took me under her wing, and she still does.
That's
Like,
amazing.
she's so loving and caring and proud of me. We were on the road a lot because when I did weather, um, I was, in studio and out, as much as I was out in the field. So we would combine weather and live storytelling,
Sure.
and we covered the province, and Sharon was with me. It was always Sharon and I and,
Yeah.
2 cameramen that we would switch off between the 2, and, yeah, she comes to mind quickly.
Yeah, is there something that stuck with you that maybe, like, she taught you a little bit about or some wise words that she left you with at one point?
Sharon would always say, "Who cares? Who cares what they think?" Because I think, I don't know if you feel like this, but when you're younger, and even now, if things bother you, you
Yes.
go, "Should I have said that?" Or "Why did they say that to me?" Or "How could they say that to me?" She would just say, "Who cares?" So I don't know.
That's
You
the
talked to
best and
Sharon and you
easiest.
felt better, you know?
Yeah. So, rewarding moments in your career. I mean, your list of interviews is insane, and whether it was Elton John or, someone political, maybe you can think about one of, like, your favorite interviews of all time.
Oh, that's a hard one because I work with change makers every day trying to make
Yeah.
this place and humanity better. So to pick one is so, so difficult. But I would say, receiving the Order of Ontario for the work that I've done. And I'm going to bring up Africa, not a
Oh,
part of
yeah.
making a difference, but that was part of my charity world. But when I went there, I saw I saw life. I
Mhm.
saw what was going on the other side of the world, and I remember every child, every person that I met. So
Mhm.
all of that changed me and shaped me.
Well, and you won a Telly Award for that, so that was your work with World Vision,
Yes, it
correct?
was for excellence in broadcasting, and there I was in a project area with orphans,
Yeah.
and I have never been so touched in all of my life. I mean, Africa has part of my heart. It
Right.
always will. That's a place where I feel so comfortable and safe in such a remote place
Yeah.
where many people wouldn't travel, they just wouldn't go. Like, I'm not going off into a big five-star hotel room. I'm in the project areas with these kids and their families, and I'm seeing life. And, Sarah, you look at these kids and you see them, trying to find food, and they're so happy and thankful, and they wanna sing, and they wanna hold your hand, and if you cry, they're like, "What? Why?" Because that's their life, you know?
Yeah. Yeah. I bet you that's been, like, so emotional when you look back, and when was the last time that you were traveling for work like that?
So the last time I traveled with World Vision was 2012.
Okay.
Um, they want me to go, they've
Yeah.
asked me back, uh, many times since then. But I
Yeah.
think too, when um, you get your family, I don't know, those are big, big trips,
For
and
sure.
you go through a lot to prepare for them, and it's
Yeah.
just not as easy to pick up and go. Um, and there's safety issues too, the whole pandemic thing. I mean, I would love to go back to Africa, and I'm
Yeah.
sure they would like me to go.
Yeah.
But those I went on 4 major trips with them for several weeks.
Yeah. Do you think that you would approach, a trip in the future with, like, young journalists to show them this type of experience? Like, that would be so cool. I don't know, I'm just, like, dreaming up what I would want.
They sort of create the trips for you wherever the need
Yeah.
is, and whether you're building a school or whatever you're doing on that specific trip to get the word out, to get kids
Yeah.
sponsored. But sure, right? I
Yeah,
think
let's dream it up.
everybody, and it's not just like, I wanna go to Africa. It's not that easy because they said they've taken people and they just don't wanna come out of their hotel room, like,
Right.
it didn't resonate with them. But for me, right away, and the
Yeah.
first time I went, it was a long journey. I went to the far south. I was in Mozambique, where the kids actually spoke. Everybody spoke Portuguese, and I sponsored a little girl there, and,
Wow.
that was the most amazing. I mean, I flew over there. You go with World Vision, so for safety issues and such, and they know how to steer you and where to go. And I met a producer and a director and an audio guy. It was like 4 of us,
Yeah.
and we created this show that won the Telly Award. And I said, I don't need a script. I just want to go and discover.
Yeah.
And the first day in the field, they took me to a school, and there was a school that had just been ready, another wind, and it would have been right down, and one that sponsorship built,
Oh, beautiful.
concrete. And I said, I need to talk about this.
Hmm.
This is where your money goes.
Yeah.
It was
When you see it
amazing.
firsthand, it's completely
When you see it
different.
firsthand, yes. But those
Yeah.
stories, when you say, "Can you pick one?" I can't really. I've done thousands of stories. I have to
Yeah.
say that Making a Difference started as Heart of the City, then the name changed. Different management they wanted a different name. So I've probably done this work for 23 years. I was trying
Amazing.
to figure that out the other day. So thousands of stories.
Yeah.
Um, but this half hour that I'm doing pulls a few that are
Is there an
just
upcoming story that you want to plug? Oh, you did. You actually did earlier. I'll make sure I put some information about that in the show notes actually if we can get a link set for that.
okay.
That'd be amazing. So the industry has changed a fair bit since you started, even since I started. Like if I
Yes.
walked into a radio station today, it's completely different, right? Than when I started. And I'm wondering if you could share I guess like an innovation that you've embraced and you love, and maybe an innovation that's been challenging.
Well, first of all, when I walked into the station 35 years ago, there weren't a lot of women in positions of
Yeah.
authority, right? And today, VP of news is female, our news director is female, and there's so
Hell
many.
yeah.
And something I embraced, I don't know, I think, in news, and I don't know if you felt like this, it changes. You're embracing things whether you want to or not. It's constant change in
Mhm.
this business, right? One minute you're doing that and everybody loves it, and the next minute they go, "We don't like that anymore." And weather was famous for that. Okay, this presentation's good, but we don't include the like it was just on and on.
Yeah.
Um, when I first started, when I created Heart of the City, it was a half hour show, and we fed segments into the news. But I wasn't writing my own material at that time. I had a producer because everything I did, Sarah, ever up until that point was live,
Right.
and I loved it. And um, a senior manager said to me, "You can tell a story live better than anybody I know, but now I want you to start writing it." And it wasn't until I started, and I wasn't a writer.
That's
But I am
fair.
now,
Yeah.
for the last, I don't know, 17 years, I am a writer and I love it. So I was afraid to embrace that next step. But when I did, the stories just really came to life. And when I'm writing, I'm my happiest. So I had to learn to embrace that and everything else that, we've had so many changes in management in
Yeah.
35 years, worked with so many different talents. A
Yeah.
and, there were struggles. We talked about that, off camera with me, off mic, and
Yeah.
I think it makes you better, right? When you dip a little lower and then you come out, and through no fault of your own. It's just, whoever
Yeah.
likes you at the time, whoever picked
I-
you at the time.
Is there is there a lesson that you learned maybe from an experience with another female in the industry? I was just talking about this with my last guest that I recorded with, and she said something like I don't even think she realized was so profound at the end of the episode. She said, "We need to stop looking across. We need to look up." And that sort of, to me
Yes.
speaks to your point about now the women we're seeing in management, which is wonderful because, up before was all men, and now we're seeing that change. Um, but I think sometimes, we're a product of our environments, right? And these environments haven't been made for all women to have success over the years. So, yeah, is there an experience that you might be able to share where even if it was, a little uncomfortable, where a great personal lesson was learned from another female in the industry?
Yeah, I went through a really hard time here for a number of years. Um, just because I think when I was doing weather, the segment became very popular and the viewership was it's hard to talk about yourself, but um
You were killing it.
I resonated with viewers, you know? And I didn't even know that. I just loved my job. I just loved doing what I was doing.
Yeah.
And maybe this other person wasn't as popular at the time. I don't know. I don't know what it was, but I remember removing myself and saying, I need to do something different. And that's when I decided to leave weather and start this. And I came out of the studio. I mean, I didn't have to be on every day because, weather is a part of the show day and night.
Yeah.
But these segments weren't you couldn't do them daily. They're features. So I
Mhm.
wasn't in the studio every night, at 5:30. And then sometimes it was hard to get back in, blocked for whatever reason. And instead of me trying to fight that or go up levels,
Yeah.
I just decided, you know what? I know who I am. I'm going to continue this work. I'm coming every day. And that's when World Vision came to me. And I wasn't sure I wanted to go because it wasn't safe over there at the time. There were many things going on. And then I said, maybe you'll come back to me another time. 3 months later, they come back and they say, we want you to talk to our president about the trip to make you feel comfortable. And Dave Toyson, who was the president of World Vision at the time, got on the phone. He goes, what will it take to make you comfortable? Because I know this is going to change your life. And I
Oh,
said, okay. He goes, okay, what? I said, I'm going to go. And it did change my life because Sarah, I went from, you want to block me here? I'm going to go with them and do this great work from my heart, all volunteer. This had nothing to do with global.
right.
And I took my vacation time to go. And I started, this is where this telly came from because we started sponsoring kids and they aired this. And I just took off over here.
This sounds to me like a story I hear a lot from my guests, which is, finding your voice outside of the organization in which you work
Yes.
for and finding out who you are, right? And that's where I think, storytelling gets even stronger because you're speaking from a place of more confidence. And, you know, I've also had challenges with women and of course other men in the industry, but
Yes.
I think those moments where you take a little chance on yourself and take, maybe a road that you didn't plan to take, it really informs who you become and the voice that you will use. So
And I was
I love
afraid
that.
when I decided to leave weather, when I said I can't sit in that studio anymore.
Yeah.
Um, and I remember over the weekend, I just felt afraid. Like, what did I do? Is this who
Hmm.
I am?
Yep.
Sitting 5:30, 11, 12 years of it every day and night.
Yeah.
Is and now because people would say, are you not at Global anymore? Oh yeah, no, I am. I just started a new segment and they didn't want to hear it because they loved me doing
Yeah.
weather. And so for a long time, you feel, did I do the right thing? But I know that I have. And this has
Yeah.
made me a better person in all aspects.
Yeah. Well, I mean, the Order of Ontario, it's like the highest civilian honor that you could have. You're being recognized on so many levels throughout your career. Um, would you say that there's an award or a recognition that is more important than another to you?
Um, no, they're all so special. I mean, the
Yeah.
Gemini Humanitarian Award, and it's so funny. Every time I get something, I think they want, it can't be me. So for the Gemini Award, I was getting into a cab to go and shoot a
Yeah.
story. And the lady on the other end says to me from the Gemini office, and she's going on. And I said, is this regarding a story idea? Can I call you back? Because I'm just getting into a cab. And she says, no, Susan, you won. And I'm like, I won. when I got off the phone, I called our marketing department and I said, "I don't know if I was nominated for this." It's like I don't hear, you know?
Yeah,
They go,
yeah,
"No, this is yours." That was powerful to me because it came
mm,
at a time when that recognition was so beautiful for the work I
yeah,
was doing, and it wasn't just you're right, not just my career, it's what I was doing outside of my career,
yeah,
and, that was wonderful. I mean, the order, I still when I stood up there to receive it that night, I was in a trance, but also when I got the honorary doctorate from my hometown university, that was so special to me to go back home and
right.
receive that there.
Absolutely. Yeah. Well, I'm thinking right now about, the state of the industry and, those other longtime journalists, especially females who have made this industry a much better place.
Mhm.
And I was talking to Marilyn Dennis about this on a recent episode.
I love her.
She she just said like, for anyone who's like sitting there waiting for my spot, in other words, I'm
Yes,
paraphrasing. Um, I'm not done yet. And
exactly.
I have a lot to say. So I'm wondering, as we approach the end of our conversation here, if you can reflect on, the honor it is to still be doing this after so long and to know that you have so much more to still accomplish at this point in your career.
It is an honor, right? It's so rewarding that you have this voice, and you do too, to bring all this goodness forward and say to people, "This is what's out here." And to
Yeah,
say, to upper management here, news directors, when you sit down and they want you to, "What else can you give us? Can you give us a half hour here? Oh, you wanna start another series?" Nobody's saying, "Your time's up." Like, I've never gone through that, and I
amazing.
still feel the age that I started. And, a big part of this job has been mentoring. And I know what Marilyn's saying for sure. And a big part of this has been mentoring. And I love it. That has given me such a gift to help others or to steer
Yeah.
them where they should go. And maybe I didn't have that. And, one of them recently said to me, "Everybody loves you. Look what you got. Look what you created." And I said, "Do you think it was always like that for me? You see me now, but you have no idea how I got here. And maybe I paved a way that you won't have to go through what I went through. It's different now. They won't have to."
Yeah. And I think too, like the people coming into this industry now they have so many skills, right? Like I might have had, the 5 things you need to be a
Yes,
journalist at that time, but it's like now they understand how to do social media. Now they understand how to go do live events. And it's just it is wild how the industry has changed, but I think the next generation is even more prepared in a way, although the challenges are different
yes.
for them.
They're more
Y-
they have more skills maybe, but they need to get a foundation. They need to just take a step back,
Yes.
take it easy and grow because you push yourself here too fast and you could just die out.
Yeah, well,
You know
especially
what I
when there are
mean?
even less jobs now, for sure, for sure. So, at the end of every episode of this podcast, I ask whoever I'm interviewing for a couple women that they love and admire in the industry who you would love to sort of nominate to come on the podcast and share their story. Who comes to mind for you?
Well, first off comes to mind because I just listened to her on a podcast was Maria Shriver, um,
Mm,
an American famous family. And yet to hear her talk, I could sit and have coffee with her all day long because she
do you know
seems
her?
very I've never met her. I would love to.
Okay,
She seems, Sarah, so real. Um, she said, I started from the bottom. I come from a high achieving family. But
right.
I wanted to get into journalism, but I wanted to learn. So I learned lighting. I, pulled scripts. I was in an edit suite. Whatever I
Yeah,
had to do to get to the anchor desk. And by the time I got to the anchor desk, I knew I deserved that position. And so
yeah, for
she does
sure.
so much work with dementia, Alzheimer's. I think her dad had it. And she's, doing so many things on that front. And she said, "For women, we can do it all, but we need patience
Absolutely.
to grow." And she too, I think she's late 60s. I'm not sure. Who cares? She said, "The best of her is yet to come." And that's how I feel. So she would be
Love that.
one that I would love to just sit and chat with.
Yeah. Okay, and why don't you give me someone maybe in your circle, someone who it could be someone behind the scenes even, just someone that you admire, maybe someone up and coming.
For you to interview or for me to sit
Yeah.
down and have a talk with?
For like the idea is, other women you would love to hear share their stories on this podcast.
I think that I talk about Sharon Murphy, who's high up here at Global now.
Yeah.
Behind the scenes, they go through stuff too. They've been
Absolutely.
passed up for jobs, but how through her eyes, how the whole industry has changed and how did she get to where she I don't think it's always someone that we know, right? A familiar name.
Yeah.
I think the second person is someone I just recently interviewed. Her name is Tracy Schmidt. She is an educator, a leader, a motivational speaker, a best-selling author, and she's also a four-way amputee. And when you sit
Wow.
down with Tracy, your life will have changed forever. She's the most positive, inspirational, determined woman I have ever met. And she
I
doesn't
love
take
that.
the word no. She heard it once when she was a child in entering kindergarten, and she said that word no is a trigger for her and it just catapults her into doing better. She has
It's
been on the
amazing.
stage with everyone, Jane Fonda, John Travolta, you name it. She's been on the stage speaking, but she's also climbs mountains and she's a world-class sailor. It just goes on and on. To hear her
Wow.
and to see her, she would be something. She goes by the unstoppable Tracy Schmidt.
I just have to ask, you mentioned you were blasting music. I have a big, history in broadcasting covering music. In your car when you're just winding down or you're getting ready to go into the studio and you're in your car, what are the types of music or your favorite
Oh,
artists that we might hear you blasting on your way to or from work?
I love everything. I even love some new country, which I never thought I'd say, and I also love smooth jazz. I got into that maybe 10 years ago. My husband goes, "What is this that you're listening to?" I find stuff like that calms me,
Yeah,
but
I
I
was gonna
also
say
like
that's why you're
to
relaxed on air.
That's why but I also like, if a good Earth, Wind& and Fire comes on or a Steely Dan or, any of that stuff. We listen, we're big, music people in our house. My husband plays the guitar, we have drums, and we're always listening to something. So Bon Jovi, what
That's
have you.
amazing.
It's everything for me.
Well, Susan, congrats on an amazing career and this accolade, 35 years with Global News. It's been a pleasure speaking to you, and thank you so much for coming on the podcast.
It's been an honor speaking to you. Congratulations on what you do, and thank you.